The divorce almost wiped out my $350,000 savings, but I managed to prove in court that I'm a fourth-grade teacher with pretty consistent work hours. Most Tuesdays, we have staff meetings that usually run until around 6:30 p.m., so I get home around 7:30 p.m. My wife Vanessa and I had been married for 31 years. She often felt tired on Tuesday nights because of her gym routine. I usually took charge of dinner while she showered or did a few chores around the house. One Tuesday, our principal called off the staff meeting at the last minute. It was only 4 p.m. I decided to head home early and get a jump on dinner. I figured I could also knock out a few household tasks before Vanessa got back from her workout. Lately, things had been strained between us, and I was hoping that a peaceful evening together away from the usual grind might help rekindle the spark. Our marriage had hit a rough patch, mostly due to money issues. Vanessa had started pulling away, trying to control more aspects of our lives. And getting defensive when things didn't go her way, despite everything. I considered myself a patient man, like any other. I parked in the garage, which was set a good distance from our house. We had built it that way when the kids were little to keep the car noise from waking them up. Their sleep was precious for them and for us. It gave us some peace to recharge at night. I parked the car and walked to our two. I walked into Vanessa's house and saw her car in the driveway, which was no surprise since she usually took the bus to the gym. I went in through the back door and thought about tidying up. I was handy around the house, so the doors and hinges were always well-oiled and silent. Neither of us could stand squeaky doors. Then I saw something out of place, Vanessa's purse on the kitchen counter. She was usually particular about keeping her things close, so this caught my attention. Her gym outfit, a tight leotard and a large towel, was lying on the floor near the counter. Strange. Then I heard noises coming from upstairs, where our bedroom was. My first thought was that Vanessa had suddenly fallen ill. I quietly made my way up the stairs, nearly tripping over a pair of men's shoes. Those shoes weren't mine. As I continued up, I saw more clothes, men's trousers, a shirt, and socks mixed with Vanessa's underwear. I suddenly felt angry. I went up the stairs, almost tripping over a pair of men's shoes. They weren't mine, but I saw more clothes mixed in, men's trousers, a shirt, and socks, along with Vanessa's underwear, which she only wore on special occasions like our anniversary. I froze, my skin went cold, and my heart skipped a beat. I had to sit down right there on the steps. Anger started to build inside me. I'm usually calm, thanks to years of teaching and handling. Kids have taught me patience, but at that moment I could barely hold it together. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I stood up and continued toward the bedroom. I moved quietly, peeking through the slightly ajar closet door where I had a clear view of the bed. What I saw was like a nightmare, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. The moans and groans I'd been hearing confirmed what I already feared. I grabbed my phone and began recording. I needed proof. I needed to look at it later to remind myself that this wasn't just a bad dream. This video would serve as evidence when I confronted Vanessa. I couldn't stop watching the scene. My wife, the woman I trusted and the mother of our grown children, was betraying me in the most brutal way. I turned off the camera and left the house. I had no destination, but after some time, I found myself in a park miles from home. I sat by a fountain and splashed water on my face. I watched the video with the volume low to avoid disturbing the kids playing nearby. I saw my life, everything I thought was real, laid to waste in those digital images. My marriage was over, and in that moment, I finally let the tears come. 30 p.m. I got back home, which was my usual time. When I got to the back door, Vanessa noticed something was wrong. My appearance must have said it all. I looked disheveled, pale, and red-eyed. "What's wrong? You look awful. Are you feeling okay? Let me get you something to drink," she said. Her voice was full of concern. I couldn't tell her. I told her the truth, My voice shook as I responded, "No, something didn't sit right with my lunch. I'm just going to shower and head to bed." "Okay, sweetie, but take a container in case you throw up. I don't want to ruin the clean sheets." The sheets weren't just clean, they were tainted with betrayal. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." "I'm going to stay in the room tonight until I feel better," I said, heading downstairs to the guest room without waiting for a response. In the following days, Terry continued with her usual routine, seemingly oblivious to my distress. I was on autopilot with work and kept sleeping in the guest room, using the excuse of a possible I knew I couldn't keep up that excuse for long. Eventually, I went back to our bedroom, but sleeping in that place of betrayal was tough. Life went on as usual by Monday. I had made a decision about what to do next. I needed to find out if this was an ongoing affair or a one-time incident. I told my principal that I would have to take an unexpected medical day the next day, so he arranged for a substitute teacher to take over my class on Tuesday morning. I left home as usual but parked a few streets away from our neighborhood and walked back to our street. I knew the back entrances to the neighboring yards near our house and proceeded with caution, making sure not to be seen by any neighbors. I reached the garage at the back of our house, changed into casual clothes and soft, silent socks suitable for noiseless walking, and began the waiting game. I remembered there had been no additional car at home when I returned. I couldn't rely on the sound of a car to alert me to visitors, so I had to wait for someone to come and go on foot. I made my way stealthily through our garden to a spot where I could observe our front door while remaining hidden by the hedges and bushes we had planted for privacy. I waited on the road and could hear Terry doing his usual tasks. He was completely unaware of my presence. It was obvious that he was confident that everything would continue as usual. He did the usual kitchen chores, laundry, and operated the dishwasher. Then he moved on to activities in the living room, like vacuuming and dusting. He kept going until about 11:30 a.m. Then Terry went upstairs. I could hear the shower, then silence, then the toilet flushing. She came back downstairs about 45 minutes later and left the front door open for any visitors. I didn't have to wait long, around 12:30 p.m. He showed up. I didn't know who he was, but he walked from the left side of our front door. My phone captured about 10 seconds of video, including side profiles and a near from what I could see of his face. He didn't hesitate. He walked through the door. The next thing I heard was, "Shook me. Hi, honey. Hope you're dressed for another great workout." Terry's response was, "Of course. You always love it when I wear these. Sometimes I wonder if it was these that attracted you first, or maybe it was these." I had seen enough to confirm the affair. Their familiarity suggested it wasn't an isolated incident. As they headed to the bedroom, I retreated to the garage, trying to compose myself. My heart was pounding as I grappled with some tough questions. Who was this man? I doubted there would be any future intimate connection with her. I noticed signs of protection, which raised concerns about possible risks if Terry was involved with others. I wondered why she never discussed her feelings. I recalled Terry's gym sessions over the past 2 years. She'd been there, mingling with local married women and participating in charity events. Perhaps the gym held answers to our troubles. As a teacher, I had access to computers, printers, and other resources. I decided to start my investigation by printing profile pictures from the recordings on my phone to identify who was involved. This might eventually lead me to the why and unravel the situation, discovering who wasn't. The following Thursday, Terry had her regular gym session, and I suggested joining her to see if I would like to become a member too, especially since I had a break at school due to midterm assessments. Terry wasn't thrilled about the idea, making excuses like it was. It was just a group of married women, and they mostly chatted during the session. For other reasons, I kept going to the gym with Terry the next Thursday. When we walked in, everyone turned to look. I noticed some women whispering. Terry said they weren't used to seeing her with someone during her regular gym sessions. The workout started with the usual warm-up. Then it was time for some more exercises, with about an hour and a half of rotating between different stations to work different muscle groups. I tried to keep up, but I had to take a break about 45 minutes in because my blood sugar was dropping. I knew I needed something sweet, so I took some glucose tablets and sat in a nearby chair. Once I'd had a chance to recover, I began to pay more attention to Terry. She was quite nervous, glancing frequently towards the staff area where the instructors entered the main hall. I also took a closer look at the gym itself. It had the typical design you find in gyms. The gym had exercise stations scattered around the room and mirrors at each station so participants could check their form and muscle definition. I decided to explore the gym a bit more and noticed a wall near the hallway exit with staff information. It was a way to pass the time while waiting. I looked at the top photo, which showed a woman who appeared to be in excellent shape. She had a great physique, but I couldn't tell how old she was. It was Jennifer, the director and owner. I saw the contact number and available hours posted under his photo. There were 3 more photos below his 2 women and a man. At that moment, I realized he was Terry's lover. This man was involved with my wife, with her enthusiastic consent. I read his description: Mr. Johnson, head of exercise regimen planning and personal training. I took down his number while thinking about where Vanessa was. She wasn't at the station where I last saw her. I went back to my seat and looked around. After a few moments, I saw her in what looked like a tense conversation with a man who was partially hidden. Ted Johnson was standing behind the weightlifting equipment near the staff entrance, and it seemed like Vanessa was blocking him from going in. She gestured for him to leave, and then she hurried back to her workout, completely unaware that I had seen her talking to him. I was furious. I wasn't used to feeling that way when Vanessa came back. She noticed something was off, and she came over to me. "You okay? You took a while to get your blood sugar under control." "Yeah, I'm fine now. Let's head home." Before she could reply, Miss Tina Watson's voice came over the gym sound system. She announced that the final exercise session wouldn't be happening because Mr. Ted Johnson had suddenly fallen ill and had to leave early. A few of the women he groaned in disappointment. It was clear his session was a crowd favorite. I couldn't help but think this needs looking into. Vanessa said nothing after the announcement, but there was a clear look of relief on her face. "Let's go," she said quickly, gathering her towel and bag from the storage area just as we were about to leave. One of the women I didn't recognize at first. The woman approached us. "Too bad Ted couldn't wrap up the session like usual tonight." She gave Vanessa a short yeah before hurrying off towards the car. It was obvious she wanted to avoid further conversation. "See you," the woman called after her, but my wife didn't look back. She hopped into the car faster than I'd seen her move in a while. The drive home was mostly silent. Vanessa seemed oddly relaxed, tilting her head back with her eyes closed and taking slow, deliberate breaths. I couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in her demeanor. Maybe now that she seemed calmer, I could learn more about what was going on. "That was an interesting workout session," I said, testing the waters. "It's no wonder you're in such great shape with those organized routines." "Thanks, babe," she replied casually. "The gym offers a solid program. The other women are pretty friendly too." I decided to probe a little deeper. "What about Mr. Johnson?" She corrected me quickly, almost too quickly. Ted Johnson. He usually wraps up the session with an intense routine that really pushes us. It's disappointing that he wasn't there tonight." I bit my tongue, thinking about how she was so committed to the charade. I thought about this guy's dedication to fitness. "Maybe next Thursday he'll be feeling better," I replied, though the thought of their next session made me sad. Thursday rolled around, and I knew it was time to act during the school week. I had been assigned to supervise the pickup line, where teachers make sure the kids safely get to their parents' cars. It's always a chaotic time with kids excitedly trying to spot their parents and parents inching forward in a line of cars, hoping their kids are ready when they reach the front toward the end of the pickup. A car pulled up, and I recognized the driver as the woman who had tried to talk to Vanessa at the gym. She greeted me with a smile. "I'm still new to this whole pickup routine and totally lost track of time," she said. Is my son Carl here? We're used to situations like this, especially with new parents, so I reassured her while the other teachers managed I went inside to find Carl, who was chatting with another teacher's son. I said, "Hey, your mom's here to pick you up. Let's go." Carl looked a bit surprised. He was in his last year of elementary school and didn't seem like the type of kid who'd forget something like pickup. "That's weird," he said, sounding puzzled. "My mom usually gets held up with her gym instructor on Friday. She's picked me up late before, sometimes not until 5 o'clock. Hearing him mention a gym instructor made me think there was more to the story. I tried to keep my voice steady as I continued the conversation casually. "Oh, it's great that your mom stays active. Exercise is really important. Do you know the name of her instructor by any chance?" I was really hoping that his answer wouldn't confirm what I was already dreading. "Oh, his name is Johnson or something like that," Carl replied casually. "He works at a local gym and also does private lessons at people's homes. That's what I want to do when I grow up. My mom loves her Friday afternoon workouts with him. She always seems so relaxed and happy when we get home. It's great. We usually get takeout on Fridays because Mom doesn't have time to cook after her session." I thought, this can't be real. It seemed like Mr. Johnson had his hands in more lives than just mine. After escorting Carl to his car, where his mother waited, she thanked me for my help. "No problem at all," I said with a smile. "It's part of the job. I don't think we've met before. I'm Ryan Dean, but the kids call me Mr. Dean." "Nice to meet you," she said, shaking my hand. "I remember seeing you at the gym last Thursday." "Yeah," I replied. Turns out, Mr. Johnson was a bigger problem than I thought. My future with Vanessa was looking pretty bleak. I had to take control. Revenge became my driving force. I started organizing all the critical details of our shared life: bills, accounts, insurance, and everything else that often goes unnoticed in a marriage. My research revealed that we had nearly paid off our mortgage, and my retirement account had grown impressively to about $350,000. I hadn't fully appreciated the teachers' union mandatory contributions until now. As I dug deeper into our finances, it became clear that we have to split everything equally. Our kids were grown and financially independent, and we had about $30,000. I had $000 stashed away in a travel fund for a big trip that was now out of the question. I needed to drain that account as quickly as possible before Vanessa caught on, so I sabotaged a few home appliances, disconnecting wires here and there when she wasn't around. Then I'd claim a repairman had come by and charged a certain amount, always in cash. Of course, I would pocket the money and fix the appliance myself later. Over time, I managed to save up around $20. I also bought various tools and gadgets, paying in cash and returning them for refunds after showing them to Vanessa as new purchases. It was deceitful, yes, but any semblance of honesty had long vanished from our relationship thanks to her betrayal. I was becoming someone I never imagined, a liar. Vanessa ate her Thursday sessions with Johnson and I stopped. I tried to engage in any sort of intimacy with her, but it was clear she wasn't interested. We coexisted as housemates, but there was no intimacy there. I packed my personal belongings into boxes and stored them in the garage. Vanessa rarely went in there, so she didn't notice the gradual disappearance of my things. I mentioned a few missing items, but I brushed it off, saying I either broke them or didn't need them anymore. She accepted the explanation without much concern as I moved more of my stuff into the garage. That's when I realized how much of my life had been influenced by her choices, everything from the decor to the color schemes I had allowed. I started to fade into the background, but that was coming to an end. I withdrew as much as I could from my retirement fund and bought a small house on the edge of town. It was modest, just 2 bedrooms with a small yard and a garage, but it was close to my job, and I could afford the mortgage payments even on half my salary. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was mine, and I preferred it that way. You'd be surprised what kind of deals you can find when you're not chasing the latest trends with my plan in motion. I continued to quietly move my things into the new house. Furniture wasn't an issue. I found everything I needed at second-hand shops. It was time for those involved to face the consequences. I reconnected with Mary Harris during another school pickup. Carl was one of the last kids waiting, and she seemed more distraught than before. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she'd been crying. As a teacher, I had been trained to recognize these signs. It was pretty clear that something was up. "Mr. Dean, can I talk to you for a second?" Mary asked, her voice full of anxiety. "Sure, why don't you park over there and I'll meet you at my usual spot," I said, pointing to the benches near the school as my makeshift office. She parked her car while Carl kicked a soccer ball around nearby. We sat on a bench in the afternoon sun, shadows lengthening across the pickup area. She started off clearly struggling with her words. "I'm not sure how much you know about what's been happening at the gym." I looked at her intently and replied cautiously, "I know my wife Vanessa enjoys going there. It's been good for keeping her active and in shape." Mary hesitated, then took a deep breath before continuing, "There are things you need to know about what's." I could tell where this conversation was headed, so I leaned in a little and asked, "Is this about Ted Johnson?" She nodded emphatically. "You have no idea how involved that guy is." "I think I might have an idea." My voice was steady, but I could tell she wanted to tell me more. "He's a womanizer targeting a lot of the regulars at the gym." When I asked her how she knew, tears welled up in her eyes. "I was one of them," she admitted, her voice cracking. "We were meeting every Friday at 12, she paused, looking up as though replaying those memories in her mind. I glanced away too, thinking about those same times and wondering what had really been going on during those hours. "I'm sorry for sharing this," she said, wiping her eyes. "But honestly, I enjoyed it while it lasted. I thought we had something. I'm divorced and I really miss the affection and intimacy of being in a relationship. I was so excited to feel that again, only this time it was with him. But I was wrong. He dropped me just like that, with no explanation. Then I found out he'd replaced me with someone else. I was stunned by her openness. How could she think it was appropriate to unload all this on me of all people? She must have been hurting. I tried to offer some kind of response, but it came out too quickly and too bluntly. Marriage doesn't always live up to what people expect. She studied my face for a moment, then her expression changed. She could see the pain in my eyes, the bitterness I'd been trying to hide. "You know, don't you?" she asked, shaking her head in disbelief. "You already know he's been with Vanessa." I sighed. "Yes, I do." "Mary, thank you for telling me," I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "I've already put some." She nodded and her tone shifted to one of fierce determination. "I believe in karma. He'll get what's coming to him. That guy's been getting away with this for too long. He doesn't care who he hurts as long as he gets what he wants. If you ever want my help in taking him down, just say the word. Him down. Just say the word. He deserves to pay for what he's done." She called for Carl, and they left. I sat there for a while, lost in my own thoughts. Mary's confession had lifted a weight off my shoulders, but at the same time, it made my plan for revenge feel petty. It was born out of my frustration, and I realized that if I was going to go through with it, I needed more solid evidence. I needed to know how many other women had fallen into his trap. It was time to find out. I did some digging and found out that Johnson worked at the gym every day except Monday, when it was closed. He used an old school. I traced the phone number posted at the gym to an address just a few blocks from my house. That's how he could so easily slip over to meet Vanessa, walking the short distance to carry on their affair. I told Vanessa that I was going to start taking evening walks around 5:30 p.m. Said it was doctor's orders to improve my health. Luckily, she wasn't interested in joining me, and I knew my walks wouldn't interfere with her time with him. During my first evening walk, I went straight to Johnson's address. It was a small ground-floor apartment nestled among similar units. His car wasn't parked outside, so I waited nearby, trying to stay out of sight. Based on the timing, I figured he'd return around 6 p.m. Right after leaving our house, sure enough, at exactly 6 o'clock, I saw him stroll up and enter his apartment. I repeated this routine for several days, each time confirming the same pattern. He would leave Vanessa's place and return to his apartment just before 6. The only day this routine was broken was when I had my staff meeting, which made me wonder how many women he jibbled on a regular basis. Each one likely followed a similar schedule. I decided it was time to dig deeper, starting my walks earlier. To keep an eye on Johnson's whereabouts throughout the day, I took a week off from school. I went to an electronics store and got everything I needed: a long-range listening device shaped like a satellite dish, voice and motion-activated high-def cameras, and a portable hard drive to store the evidence. On Monday, I installed the first camera in Johnson's apartment. His place wasn't big, just a one-bedroom unit. The apartment had a bedroom unit with a living area and kitchen. I set up one camera to cover most of it, and I also placed one in his bedroom. It was almost laughably easy to get in. He left his key under the doormat like in a bad movie. Once I confirmed the cameras were working, I left. Now, whenever he made a sound or moved inside his apartment, the camera would activate and record both video and audio. The footage streamed live to my computer, where it was saved with timestamps. The first night, the camera captured him eating takeout in front of the TV before heading to bed around 9:12 a.m. The plan was in motion on Tuesday. I slipped into the gym after hours through the back door, which I suspected was often overlooked during closing checks. Inside, I placed another camera in the private room where Ted frequently conducted personal health assessments with clients. As I installed the equipment, I caught myself thinking, who am I becoming? Installing cameras and spying on people is far from who I once was. There was no turning back now. On Wednesday, while Vanessa was out shopping, I placed cameras in our bedroom and the living room. When I reviewed the footage from the previous day, I wasn't surprised by what I saw. Ted left his apartment early and only returned with breakfast in hand. I couldn't help but think this guy's too lazy to even make his own breakfast. He stayed in his apartment until the gym opened and left at around 10:30 a.m. During that time, he made an interesting phone call. "Hey Julie, it's Ted. You already left, okay? See you at 12 o'clock. 30 at your place. Don't forget to bring what I asked for. Yeah, I'll be careful. No one will see me come in. You said he's out of town for 3 days. Perfect. I can come Thursday and Friday too. We'll talk later." After the call, he practically skipped out of the house, looking far too pleased with himself. I couldn't wait to see how he planned to explain all this to Vanessa on Thursday. I set up my makeshift command center in the I was waiting in the garage to see what the cameras would capture. Sure enough, Johnson's feet came through. He woke up, went out for breakfast again, and made a call this time to Vanessa. I could hear everything. "Hey, it's Ted. How's my favorite girl feeling today?" Vanessa's voice came through the feed. She was wary but affectionate. "Ted, don't talk like that on the phone. You never know who might be listening. My husband's at work, so we're still on for 12:30. Meanwhile, Mary had been happy to help me put together a list of other women Ted had been involved with within a week. She gave me the names and addresses, which I wasn't happy about. Vanessa's name was on the list, along with several others. By this point, I'd stopped caring about our home. Even Vanessa noticed how the house felt emptier lately. I told her I'd been clearing out my belongings, and she didn't question it. After all, it didn't affect her things and gave her more space. I quietly moved the rest of my stuff to my new house, leaving behind only what was necessary to keep up appearances. I also consulted with a divorce attorney. I had already made my moves. I had consulted with an attorney and we had the papers ready. Financially, I had already made some changes. My vacation savings were drained into my personal account. I kept meticulous records of every fake repair and expense, all neatly organized in case they were needed as evidence. I updated the beneficiaries of my retirement account to our children and withdrew as much as I could. I opened new bank accounts, got new credit cards, and took out new insurance policies in my name. I also transferred the car to her and got a new phone, which I registered to myself. Then I put together detailed packets for the husbands and partners of the women on Mary's list. Each packet had dates in it. I also included the locations and all the evidence they needed to know about Johnson's involvement with their spouses. I even included the address of the local sexual health clinic. I thought it might be a good time to have a serious conversation with their head instructor on the kitchen table. I also left divorce papers along with photos printed from the surveillance footage of Ted and Vesa together. I also left DVDs of their encounters along with my wedding ring cut in half and covered in something unpleasant. A note was attached that said, "Vanessa, this ring symbolizes the mess our marriage has become. Don't contact me unless it's through the attorney. I've listed the divorce papers and asked the school to restrict your access. Don't try contacting me there. Any disturbance could lead to police involvement." I also informed our children, making sure they understood why this breakup was happening. I drove to my new house and waited for the inevitable fallout. Sure enough, local newspapers picked up the story. It wasn't long before the gym where Johnson worked was involved in a scandal. The owner had to close the business and leave town. As for Johnson, he was found beaten in an alley, likely by an angry group of husbands. Divorce petitions flooded the court, and several homes went up for sale. When Vanessa came home and saw my parting gifts, she fainted on the spot. A neighbor heard her scream and called 911. Vanessa tried to contact me after the divorce was finalized, but I wasn't reachable. She even went to the school, but she was arrested for causing a scene. After that, she tried to contact me less and less. Our children were very honest with me and told me that they thought Vanessa had been unfaithful. Fortunately, they inherited their sense of ethics from me, not Vanessa. The divorce was finalized without much trouble. She had to sell the house and use the proceeds to buy a smaller one on the outskirts of town. She now lives alone, haunted by her reputation as one of the infamous gym women. Every time she goes into town, she faces whispers and judgment. Her shame eventually led her to seek treatment at a psychiatric facility. As for me, I continued my teaching career and settled comfortably into my new home, far removed from the chaos Vanessa had created. I hope you enjoyed this emotional story of love, lust, and lies. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new story every day. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so feel free to share your experiences and tell your story.